Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
If you need protection, you need one who you can trust. To secure your investment, you need one who'll do you just. TDC Insurance, you're the one that you can trust. TDC Insurance, you're always safe with us. TDC Insurance is your go-to insurance company for all your insurance needs. We take pride in offering you the best solutions and ensuring our customers are fully satisfied. TDC Insurance, we take good care of you, guaranteeing you peace of mind. You're always safe with us.
People make the world go
Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis. You're listening to Win FM 98.9. This is of Inside the News, and I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. Good morning to all of you who are joining us today, whether it be via the radio, whether you are joining via the World Wide Web, or of course via social media. Good morning, and thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on today's edition of Inside the News. It is just 4 minutes past the hour of 11. I want to say good morning to all our, frontline workers out there who have been working overtime, who have been working tirelessly to ensure that they play their part in keeping COVID-19 contained, so that we out here can continue our, day-to-day operations. We can continue our day-to-day lives as a people, and as citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. Today we're going to be looking at a particular topic that has sparked a little bit of public debate. It was something I saw through social media, and even yesterday here on the Voices program, if my memory serves me right, it was about two callers that brought it up. So I went and I did some little bit of research, and I came across a report. Or let me say a statement, from the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Thank you to that caller for prompting me to do that. So I went and I did a little bit of research, and I came across a brief report that they published on July 6th, 2021. And this is going to form part of the morning segment of Inside the News here on Win FM 98.9. We are going to take a break to say thank you to the sponsors for this program, and when we come back, we're going to kick off this discussion. Let's take this break, and we'll be right back.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Gift for Dad's birthday? Click. Ooh, Janice's retirement party? Click. Outfit for my girl's wedding? Click.
With TDC Airbox, you click, we ship. Register for your free US mailbox today and shop all your favorite stores online. Enjoy the convenience. Free consolidation up to £10. Competitive rates. Free package tracking account with live notifications. Free delivery and, of course, excellent customer service. Visit our website at tdcairbox.com and register today. For more information, visit our offices at the C.A. Paul Industrial Site in St. Kitts and Penny's Industrial Site in Nevis. Follow us on social media at TDC Airbox. TDC Airbox. You click, we ship. Terms and conditions apply.
People make the world go
Yes, welcome back to Inside the News on Win FM 98.9. I'm your host for today's edition, Devon Cornelius. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we are going to have a discussion about the statement that was issued by the International Monetary Fund, IMF. And we're going to be entertaining some calls from members of the public on this report, on this statement. I promise to have in the future some experts to weigh in on this topic. As you know, it was a bit short notice to have people come and speak on this particular topic, but we hope to be back in the near future with some experts in the field of economics, and we hope to entertain a panel discussion or a discussion on this report or statement in the near future. So as I stated before, I came across this article or the statement that was published by the IMF, and I would just want to share some of what they shared with you. As I know, many people have not been made aware of this report, so I would want to share this for you or share it with you. So on June 22, 2021, the virtual 2021 Article 4 mission for St. Kitts and Nevis concluded. It says that the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on St. Kitts and Nevis's tourism-dependent economy has been severe, despite timely government actions that kept domestic infections in 2020 the lowest in the Western Hemisphere. A rebound in tourism should prompt a strong recovery from 2022 onward, but risks to the outlook are significant. Containing the pandemic and supporting the economy are near-term policy priorities. As the recovery takes hold, policy focus should shift to rebuilding fiscal buffers by resuming to save part of the CBI revenues preparing the financial system for exit from the temporary support measures, and pursuing structural reforms to support productivity, economic competitiveness, and of course, human capital. Now, it goes on to say that St. Kitts and Nevis entered the COVID-19 pandemic from a position of fiscal strength, following nearly a decade of budget surpluses. St. Kitts and Nevis entered the COVID-19 pandemic from a position of fiscal strength, following nearly a decade of budget surpluses. It says a significant part of the CBI, or a significant part of the large CBI revenues, were prudently saved, reducing public debt to below the regional debt target of 60% of GDP and supporting accumulation of large government deposits. So, in a sense, this is saying that because of good money management and savings, that we were able to enter this financial crisis from a position of financial strength, and the economy was performing well prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. It says that prompt government action helped to contain the pandemic's public health impact. Now, that is speaking more so to the health aspect of it, whereas at the onset of the pandemic in March 2020, the government swiftly restricted inbound travel, introduced safety protocols, including a month-long national lockdown, and procured protective and medical equipment. The subsequent reopening of borders from end October 2020 has been accompanied by strict safety protocols. The response measures effectively mitigated the pandemic's human cost, with St. Kitts and Nevis having had the lowest per capita case count in the Western Hemisphere and no mortalities in 2020. So we're going to be looking at some of the findings that the IMF reported, and I want to be taking calls as soon as possible. So if you are interested in calling in, the numbers to call are 466 0989 762 0989 and 662 0989. The first finding was that St. Kitts and Nevis entered the COVID-19 pandemic from a position of fiscal strength, following nearly a decade of budget surpluses. And so that is from my interpretation, that is essentially saying because of the, let me say, skillful management of the economy in terms of saving revenues from the CBI program and reducing public debt, which resulted in reducing public debt, we were able to enter the pandemic in 2020 from a position of financial strength, meaning the economy was performing above average. The economy was performing well. And of course, this is what we heard. We often hear, even up to yesterday, we often hear of how much money was left in the treasury and how much was taken out. I mean, you'd always hear these stories, and everybody would have their own side to tell of how much money was there and how much money should be there. And, you know, the list goes on and on and on. But according to the IMF, we did enter the pandemic from a position of fiscal strength following nearly a decade of budget surpluses. Now, it goes on to say that the impact on the economy has been... Okay, we have a caller on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning. You are live on Inside the News.
Yes, and good morning to all the listeners at home and abroad. Now, you yourself have been listening to people saying, oh, they had a surplus. They must be borrow the money and say they have a surplus. Now, we don't want to give credit where credit is due. Near a decade, 6 years.
I didn't hear you. Repeat that.
They said for
Repeat that again.
A decade is 10 years, eh?
Yes, I know that. Uh-huh.
For almost 10 years, the country has had surpluses. They went into it. And I've already dispelled this thing about the 999 because the true figure is found in the auditor's report. It's not what a political party say. It's what the auditor say because according to the Constitution, the audit department is independent of government. So they don't have to say what the government say. Now, I for one have been asking for financial responsibility. Because we could even have been further on, you know. We could have been further on. If you go back, a lot of money was thrown around before the 2015 election with very little management or control. And people like you hear about, creative accounting. Even in your own personal life, if you don't manage your finances well, there are many civil servants who work for big salaries, you know, and on retirement, they're on the pauper line. They're on the beggar line. They don't own a house. Some of them don't own nothing. And we should give credit. It's not credit to Timothy Harris, you know. It's to all who involved, right? Timothy Harris is only one person. I think sometimes we say, Timothy Harris and Dougie. All his partners in the cabinet are responsible. And it must have taken some fortitude to do that. Because they could have gone into a spending frenzy, you know. They could have gone into a spending frenzy. And you have heard things about, where the IMF report, because they're hiding. Now that we have heard what the IMF say, I want to hear the critics. Did they pay the IMF to say what they say? Did the IMF see the books? Because I can tell you, when I was working, whenever the IMF team reaches the island, the first place they come is the planning unit, the statistics department. And they don't take the government word for it. They go to the private sector, they go to the companies, they go to the manufacturing plant. They do a lot of the work themselves. They meet with the opposition. Whoever they are, they meet with them. They meet with the union. So that people know. And I, for one, have said a lot of what, let's take the paper. That program needs serious monitoring. A household has a definition. Now, according to the census, you could have more than one household in a dwelling. But when you have people falsely claiming, it's fraud, you know. And sometimes for political reason, all politicians, all political parties do it. They go on the ball and they threaten. A vote is now a threat. You notice that? A vote become a threat. If you don't give me this thing, I'll vote for you. It's a threat to good financial management. People have become so reliant on the government that they don't even stop to think. They don't plan their future. They don't say, well, I could get sick, let me buy some medical insurance.
But let me ask you something.
Yeah, ask me.
Based on what the IMF has stated, what is your opinion in a nutshell of it?
Well, my opinion, I haven't heard the whole thing because I am accustomed to read them. You understand? Now you read a certain section, but I don't know what were the recommendations.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue later on.
Right, because I have to first hear their recommendations. You understand? What you have read is what they saw. That there was good financial management. In that they were able to use some of the surplus to pay down the debt, to reduce the debt, which gave them more scope if they wanted to borrow. They were using the thing in terms of surplus. They were not spending all, even though they had the capacity to. But I would say that there was some wastage in some of the safety net projects. I think so. Because as I say, sometimes I hear 3 and 4 people in one house unpacked. That's wastage.
Yeah, that has the.
You got to be honest.
Issue.
And some people on step should have been put off. If you are on step and you don't want to be trained and you don't want to work, you should be put in the unemployment line. Let somebody else get that spot. Because if you recall, when they went in 2015, there were 5,000 people on it, between St. Kitts and Nevis. It was carried down to 3,000 something. And it started edging up again. Because people who want a payday and don't want to work want to be on step. So step became like PEP. You follow what I'm saying? There should be a time limit for some people if you got a training program, because that's what happened on the PEP. People were training for almost 2 years. No certification, no nothing. People who went on to a 6-month training program, they didn't do phase 2. And I know a lot, well, no, when they're ready, they're going to cuss. Some of them need to be put off. Well, no, we're not defending them off, but let them know. You know, but...
Yeah.
But
thank you.
Even though we had savings, there were a lot of wastage.
I want to take some more calls at this time, caller, so I'm going to...
All right.
With you, I'm going to take some more callers. The numbers to call are 466-0989-762 and 662. If you have no calls at this time, I'm going to continue reading the report from the IMF. So it says, at the onset of the pandemic in March 2020, the government swiftly I touched that part already. Okay. So it says, but the impact on the economy has been severe. The complete halt in cruise ship arrivals and very few stay-over tourists since the first quarter of 2020 compounded on the pandemic's disruptions on domestic activity. In response, the government introduced tax waivers, deferrals, and incentives, and the Social Security Board provided unemployment benefits to affected injured workers. We have a caller on the line. Let's take this call.
Yeah, good morning, man. How are you doing?
Good morning, caller. You are live?
Yeah, good morning, man. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, man, the lady just made some great comments there, man. I wanted to really, back her up a little bit, But the people who's been calling for IMF reports, I guess they got an IMF report now, right? So basically, I just want to hear what they're going to say about this report now. But from my observation, man, the government has been doing pretty good. And I strongly recommend that they try to diversify the economy, coming out of this COVID era. It's all good and well to jumpstart tourism again, but they should not stick with tourism alone. They got to either subsidize the agriculture so the farmers and them could keep going and produce for the local foods for the local people. But I strongly recommend that they try to diversify the economy coming out of this COVID. And, we'll just watch and see what's going to happen in the near future as we get past COVID. So good luck to you guys again, man. And I hope the Federation can get back to that strong financial position they were before COVID came. All right, I'll be listening today. Thanks a lot, man.
Right. Thank you, caller, so much for your contribution. And I'm going to continue until we get another caller on the line. So it says, and the Social Security Board provided unemployment benefits to insured workers. In parallel, the regional and okay, we have another caller. We'll take this call. Caller, good morning. You are live on Inside the News.
Yes. Greetings to you and your audience in the name of Jesus Christ, the only Savior of sinners from their sin and from hell, and the second member of the eternal Trinity. You know, what the thing is that there are all kind of standards, but the one and only true standard is the biblical standard, the Bible standard. Now, with all due respect, what the Bible tells us about when government and when we do things the Bible way, the blessings and so that God would bestow on us. The best that we have without doing things the Bible way is nothing compared to what we would have in doing things the Bible way. And we are settling for far less than the best that we can have because of our disobedience to the Bible. So what we call strength, you match it against the Bible standard, and it's very, very, very weak. And so therefore, we are wrongly settling for the wrong things. Because the only right thing to go is to settle for what the Bible says and do what the Bible says. And that is what would give us the best. That is what is the solution and the answer to all that we want. I've been saying for years, and I will always continue to say, when we don't do things the Bible way, things will go in the end wrongly, catastrophically, destructively, and so on. And that is what we are seeing today in the COVID, in government, unbiblical, anti-scriptural, and sinful responses to the COVID and other things in life. And yes, people would laugh when we who are speaking the Bible say these things. People would laugh, but as we go along in time, we see that what the Bible is saying is true. And many people who laugh at what we say are now crying and mourning because God has, in his own time, somewhat, to a certain degree, turned the tables. And if we don't repent and continue to obey the word of God, the tables would even turn more in a worse direction and to a worse degree. Because that is what to be expected when we do not go the Bible way in doing things the Bible way. So it's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of whether we're going to look at human perspective, which the Bible said there are things, there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is death. So all disobedience to the word of God end in death. But that is man's perspective that looks good to him. Or the Bible tells us, you obey the word of God and you get life. And
caller, we are talking about the IMF report. What do you have something to add to that?
Yes, and the IMF report is written from a sinful human perspective. And what they call strong, based on the Bible, that is very, very, very weak. And because the IMF report is based on a human perspective, which is sinful and wrong, and it is not based on the divine biblical perspective, which is the only correct one, and which we will get blessings from God in doing things God's way that would make things look would make things look that are to the and in the past look like nothing when we get God blessings for obeying His word. So I just wanted to share this.
So my question to you, what do you recommend? What is your recommendation?
Yes, my recommendation. Hello. Yeah, my recommendation, as I've been saying it for years, and we continue to say it. Once God give me the strength, life, and opportunity to do so, is that if we want the very best, which is far, 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 far better than what we have today or anything that we had in the past, is to repent, and start to obey the Bible, and live to the glory of Jesus Christ as individuals and as a country, as businesses, as government, and so on in life. And that is what would give us the very best in life. And that is the Bible's recommendation, which I preach and adhere to and believe in. So thank you. Thanks.
Right, thank you, caller, so much for your contribution. We'll take a short break at this time to say thank you to the sponsors. When we come back, we'll continue this program. Let's take this break. We'll be right back.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Buying your medication is easy with City Drug Store's curbside pickup. WhatsApp our certified pharmacist at 662-8769 with your requests. For prescriptions, take a clear photograph and send for review. We will engage you in dialogue and then provide a quotation and link for payment. You can then pay via TDC's online payment portal. And once the transaction is complete, you'll be notified that your pickup is ready. Yes, it's that easy. Send your WhatsApp message to 662-8769 to order your medications today with City Drug Store's curbside pickup service.
People make the world go
To Inside the News on WinFM 98.9. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. It is just 11:33, and we are entertaining a discussion on the IMF report. I'm just reading what was published here on July 6th, 2021. So the report goes on to say that the regional and national financial supervisors swiftly introduced temporary response measures, including loan moratoria that supported liquidity and effectively mitigated the pandemic's financial system impact. Nonetheless, the pandemic resulted in an estimated annual decline in GDP of 12.5%. We have a caller on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning. You are live on Inside the News.
Greetings. Give thanks to the reason so far. I want to tell you, man, it's a shame, you know. What are we in? According to the Western Gregorian calendar, we are in the year 2021. And up to the time, knowing our story, we are still awaiting and glorifying in reports from those who owe us and cannot pay us where money is concerned. It is a shame. I know we can do better as a people. Our story is not a myth. It's real. So why, up to this time, on the Western Gregorian calendar 2021, we are still International Monetary Fund report. It's a shame, man. Them people, they owe us and cannot pay us when it comes to money. Certain part of our reparation is priceless. priceless. They don't have enough money to pay us. And here we are. It's really a shame. The heads of governments all over the world who are part of our race need to get their act together. Those who are not in the right places will move aside. The race is going through too much up to the time that we're in, knowing what we know. It is no secret, we know. Even though no case trial in the Hague as yet, we know. Concerning the vaccine, I would like to say something quickly. Can the Most High, who created all things, including superb human being, can be a druggist when they say herb is a drug? And then we go on, and can the Most High, who created all things within excellence, can make mistake, can be, not writing in the doings and his creation that a human body in its natural altered state of immunity cannot be enough. But when the human body live as it is meant to live, because immunity comes from healthiness. The cleanest consuming. That's why immunity, that's what builds immunity. The way that the Creator created man, woman to live, the superb creation to live, you live that way and you build immunity. What you all are telling me, what you all are telling us, that we have to inject germs inside of a natural, pristine, clean, immunity up body, goodie, in order to be in defense of another germ or the same germ. That means the Creator don't know what the Creator don't make mistake. I mean, how can people talk about God in one part of the mouth and doubting God? The way God said his superb creation ought to live, doubting that on the other hand. Why? The order was set. The human is the most superb of all creation. Live in accordance to how we ought to live, and all will be well in terms of the goodie, in terms of immunity, potency.
Right. Caller, you have you want to add something to...
We'll wind up. Give thanks.
Right. Thank you so much, caller, for your contribution. We're going to pause with the calls at this time, and then we'll you a little bit later. So I want to finish reading what the IMF has stated. It says, nonetheless, the pandemic resulted in an estimated annual decline in GDP of 12.5%, and the general government's first fiscal deficit, 4.7% of GDP since 2010, financed by drawing down on its sizable deposit buffer. Now, containing the pandemic and supporting the economy remain the key near-term policy priorities. It says the government has made rapid progress toward its end October vaccination target of 70% of the population. About a quarter of the target population is fully vaccinated, and 65% have received the first dose. As the recently instated partial lockdown in response to budding community spread confirms, herd immunity has not yet been reached and should remain the number one priority to save lives and livelihoods. Fiscal relief measures should be kept in place until the recovery firmly takes root. Maintaining robust levels of public investment would further support activity. It says an expected rebound in tourism sets the stage for a strong recovery from 2022 onward, but risks to the outlook remain significant. The IMF says they project a small further decline in GDP of 1% in 2021, followed by 10% growth in 2022. The pre-pandemic GDP level is expected to be reached in 2024. However, the recovery path could be derailed should the pandemic impose sustained disruptions on the anticipated pace of tourism inflows and domestic activity. Other risks include financial sector uncertainties, natural disasters, and lower than expected CBI receipts. Now, once the recovery is firmly established, the IMF continues, the government should resume its policy of saving part of the CBI revenues to build fiscal buffers. As a small natural disaster susceptible country dependent on tourism and historically volatile CBI revenues, St. Kitts and Nevis needs significant buffers. High buffers would also provide more fiscal space to mitigate contingent and long-term fiscal pressures, including possible further reacquisitions of lands swapped as part of the 2012 to 2014 sovereign debt restructuring and a possible future need to buttress the national pension system that under current projections will start to run deficits and begin depleting its reserves if corrective measures are not taken in due course. Staff stimulation suggests that maintaining an overall budget surplus of at least 2% of GDP would support a robust pace of buffer build-up. Assuming annual CBI revenues of 9% of GDP, the savings would allow reducing public debt to around 40% of GDP and rebuilding deposits to close to a quarter of GDP by the end of the decade, which would provide a significant buffer against both macroeconomic and natural disaster shocks. It says the room for government investment would be modest at around 3% of GDP annually, but could be expanded by policy measures such as reducing the government wage bill, reforming tax incentives, and strengthening public investment efficiency. Higher than assumed CBI revenues could also create more room for investment, albeit part of the additional revenues should be saved, including as additional buffer against contingent fiscal pressures. Lower CBI revenues would increase the necessity of policy adjustment and possibly additional borrowing, which would lead to a slower reduction of government debt. This is rather interesting. It goes on to say that financial sector policies should increasingly focus on building readiness for the exit from temporary support measures. The financial system remains stable and benefits from sizable buffers, but the pandemic's full asset quality impact will become apparent only upon the expiry of the loan moratoria. National authorities should therefore review and formalize operationalizable crisis management plans in close coordination with the ECCB. Long-standing high non-performing loans and elevated investment portfolio risks in the systematically significant bank should be more decisively addressed. In addition, a more robust divestment plan for the remaining lands from the sovereign debt swap should be pursued based on updated valuations for the unsold lands, a revised cost-sharing agreement between the bank and the government on any shortfalls from original valuations, and a more active strategy to attract potential investors, including closer coordination with the CBI program. It says further supervisory guidance, including on loan moratoria expiry and loan loss provisioning, can support timely balance sheet repair of the non-bank sector. Legislative reforms to streamline foreclosure processes will facilitate asset recovery efforts. Continued efforts to strengthen compliance with international AML CFT standards and the transparency and oversight of the CBA program can help mitigate risks to correspondent banking relationships. We're going to open up the phone lines and we're going to take some calls to get your opinion on what the IMF has stated. It's 11:47. We'll see how many calls we can get in before we wrap up at midday for the headline news. Remember the numbers to call are 466-0989-762 and 662. Now, part of this statement or report is saying that the government would have to let go some of their civil servants and their public servants because the wage bill for the government is extremely high. And there's some people on the government payroll that are being paid thousands of dollars, and some of these people they're not qualified for the work that they've been doing, and they have been politically appointed. They have been politically appointed. So because of what support they gave to whichever administration, they got a big position with big money. And now we may be feeling the squeeze. We have a caller on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning. You are on Inside the News.
Yes, Devon again. Good morning to the listeners. It was quite interesting, though I think some of the recommendations are a bit too stiff.
Are a bit too strict?
Stiff, S-T-I-F-F.
Oh, stiff. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now, to suggest that they take the debt to 40% is unreasonable.
How
60
so?
is actually the desired level, 40%. Well, of course, you hear them say sell the land. That is nothing new. From the time we entered the debt for land swap, the IMF has been pursuing the policy of sell the land. People are just saying, oh, yeah, ain't true. What they did say, however, that they must try and redeem some of the land, because I prefer if they redeem it. Buy back, right? That's what redeem means. Buy back some of the land and sell it to locals. Some will have to be sold, and I have said before, our citizens in the diaspora should consider applying to buy some of this land, because they have access, some of them, to more capital. And the government wage bill has always been too high.
Yes.
Since 1996, I can tell you that when the government run these employment programs, it messes up everything. 1996, they had what I call the YES program. Many people are born yet. And so they said they're going to bring in 500 people, put them on, attach them to government departments, let them get some training and so. Politicians began to bring in their constituencies. It reached over 1,000. And when the 6-month period was up, the people on the program, most of them began to issue threats. If you lay me off, I'm going to vote you out. This vote is a threat, you know. And the same thing with pep.
Yes.
It becomes a threat. Our people are not concerned about economics, you know, that one morning you wake up, you don't get pay. And some since 1996, government had been struggling. That is what caused the SSMC to crash. It was ram-packed, overloaded with people that they did not need. They were making $30 million losses every year. And they were popping champagne glass and things. You know, reckless, financially reckless. And the same, so you now have the government change. All who couldn't get in, who want to get in, you got to face facts, you know. Well, I vote for you, so I want a job. And I vote for you, and I must get a job, otherwise I'm going to vote for Labour. So now it is Labour against unity. It was the opposition against Labour. So what do? The private sector needs to expand. Let me say it again. The private sector needs to expand. We need to bring in, and we tend to be overlooking the manufacturing sector. Saying it as a manufacturing sector, you know. That needs to be diversified, expanded. We could take some of the load off of the government sector. Take some of the
so do you support that call by the IMF to reduce the government wage bill by what I assume may mean to let go some of the who are highly paid?
No, it doesn't mean that, you know. It means get some of the people off the bill. Now, what the Labour did, as I told you, right?
Right. I understand what you're saying, but I'm asking you now. I would think that the government wage bill
to make an impact.
That is not what?
There are not enough of those kind of people to make a significant impact.
You sure?
You think so?
Yes.
Go to your mind.
There are people who go home. There are people who go home with close to $150,000 a year from the government. One man. You let go 30 of them.
How many? What? Let me tell you what the Labour Party did. It pushed, I think it's about 300 or so persons onto the pension scheme. Just like how the private sector, when they had the recession, they cut all the money, almost all the management staff went. Cable and wireless, all the top. Because if you cut the bottom, you ain't really doing much. So they will have to begin to take a look at who near retirement that can go. Some of the agencies that they have, they can put them together. You know, sometimes you need to close down some of the agencies you have. Because that's what SSMT did, NACO with NACO.
Right, but let's be realistic. You said it a while ago, you know. You said it a while ago, you know. We public servants would use that. If you let me go, I'm going to vote against you. So if you insist in making big money,
our politicians are not strong enough to stand up. Because a lot of the threats are empty threats. Because when they say so, but you see, and then our opposition parties are not honest. So what they would encourage is what they end up with. You see what we're getting at? Oh, well, they turn you away, and next thing, they vote out to in, and then when you step in, they're waiting for you. We need parties on all sides who understand economics, who understand people, who understand that if you have a country to run, you are responsible. And the
so my
sector,
question to you, looking at the situation now, which parties would you say understand economics and the people?
Which one understand?
Yes.
I'm looking. I know who don't understand.
Tell me.
Opposition parties, the things they say.
No. When you
Statements
say
they make.
opposition parties, that you mean
Parties,
everybody, because
oppose-
every
look, what
single.
is the aim of
When you
opposition
say,
parties is to
hold
unseat the parties.
on. When you say opposition parties, right? You're not being clear, because
All right, let me
you
make
could
it clear
be
for
in
you.
Labour, you could be in CCM, you could be in NRP. So I'm
Let me make
asking
it clear.
a
Let me
direct
just ask you
question.
ask a question. In saying case you have the Labour Party, in Nevis you have the NRP. You can't be clearer than that.
No, you did not say that before. You said opposition parties.
Well, the
You
only
should
two
have
said-
said. No. You should have said whether you meant the Labour Party and the NRP.
Those are the opposition
When you said-
parties.
Yeah,
Anybody
but
know
that
that?
statement, when you said opposition parties, you gave, my interpretation was that you meant opposition parties. Plain and simple,
Parties,
meaning
yeah,
that
plural.
you automatically don't understand anything about economics.
All right. They know, when they're in power, they understand. But when they're out, you can't believe the thing they say. Oh, you should give.
So are
I
you
have heard them
saying?
say, you should
So
give
are you
everybody
saying
the
that?
1,000.
So are you saying that we may end up in a situation where, if the current administration ends up in opposition, that they would be in the same position?
Yeah, it's a political game everybody playing.
So are you saying that our political parties only know when they are in government?
I am glad you heard it.
No. I want to be sure. I want to be sure what you're saying. I want to be sure.
The question you said it. You know a lot of things that people say when they're out. When you read in a different ball game, when you're out, you could promise the moon. You ain't gonna pay no this, you ain't gonna do none of that. And at the first meeting, you call the financial secretary and she throw back the book.
Right,
Said,
but Carla, you're not being clear, You're not being clear, because first you're saying opposition parties.
I have been
No, you're
around
not being
the
clear.
Mulberry Bush. I
You
have
said-
had access to information and I know.
You said.
What things they say.
You said.
And then sometimes because they're under threat, sometimes they're forced into making policies that they don't, that they know.
No,
They're not in the best
You're
interest of
not
the
being
country.
clear. You're not being clear. Okay, It is 11. It is 12 o'clock. We have to wrap up quickly for the headline news. But you're not being
All right,
clear.
then.
You're not being clear. You're saying opposition parties. When you say opposition parties, I take that to mean that opposition parties, just what you said, meaning once you are in opposition, you don't understand the economy, you don't understand economics. Then you went on to say the Labour Party is in opposition in St. Kitts and the NRP is in opposition in Nevis. So you went on to you went from saying you mean opposition parties to the Labour Party and the NRP. Yes, those two parties are currently in opposition. But when you say opposition parties, I don't think I'm the only one who took that to mean generally, you mean people or political parties that find themselves in opposition. What I want to know is that, do you mean the Labour Party and the NRP, or do you mean once you are in opposition? That is what I want to know. I want you to be as clear as possible so that I can understand exactly what you're saying. So if I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but if I understand what you're saying, is that once you are in opposition, from the moment you get into opposition, you begin to act like you don't know nothing about how the government run. You begin to act like all is well and the government could do everything. Are you saying that this is a situation for all political parties, or are you saying this is a situation only for the Labour Party and the NRP? I just want to be clear, and I just want to understand what you're saying. Because remember, you said it, So I want to understand exactly what you're saying. Right? Not for me to assume what you're saying, but I want you to come out and say what you mean, and then mean what you say. Because saying opposition parties is not clear. Yes, we know the parties that are in opposition today, but we know how the country works. This is democracy, and so one day you may have Labour in power, the next day you may have Labour in opposition. So if that is what you're saying, opposition parties, I would take that to mean that if the government is to end up in opposition, that means you're saying that they don't understand nothing about the economy. So how is it that you're saying that they seem to understand the economy now, but as soon as they get into opposition, they don't understand the economy? So I want you to be clear in what you say. Yes, I'm a smart guy, so I can understand what you mean, but when you speak, people should understand exactly what you're saying. Say what you mean. Say what you mean. And I'm confident that you can say what you mean, Carla, because I know you're a very, very confident person. So say what you mean so that people can understand exactly what you are referring to. It is now 12 o'clock. We are going to break for the headline news, and we're going to continue this conversation. Very, very interesting. And I hope to get some participation this afternoon, some more participation this afternoon from you members of the public. We'll take this break for the headline news, and we will be back shortly. Stay tuned to WinFM 98.9. I've been your host for the first half, Devon Cornelius.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International. By land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
We are faced with tough decisions every day, but choosing the right home or motor insurance shouldn't be one. You need fast claim settlement from a company that's been rooted for over 31 years. And don't forget the A Excellent rating by AM Best. Make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Reliable insurance that you can count on. Get a quote today for your home, motor, contents, and liability insurance needs, and make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance. Tomorrow secured. Local agents, Dalil Walwyn & Co. Limited. Telephone 465-2631 or 469-5303 for the Nevis office.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
We are faced with tough decisions every day, but choosing the right home or motor insurance shouldn't be one. You need fast claim settlement from a company that's been rooted for over 31 years. And don't forget the A Excellent rating by AM Best. Make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Reliable insurance that you can count on. Get a quote today for your home, motor, contents, and liability insurance needs, and make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance. Tomorrow secured. Local agents, Dalil Walwyn & Co. Limited. Telephone 465-2631 or 469-5303 for the Nevis office.
With the WIN Headline News, I am Kevon Brown. Making the headlines, update on COVID-19 infection rate and vaccination numbers. In St. Lucia, elections are set to begin on Monday, July 26th, and Philip J. Pierre, leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party, is promising a Labour government of transparency and inclusion if his party wins the election. In Guyana, the government is considering vaccination a proposal for social events and mass gatherings to encourage increased vaccination rates, according to President Irfan Ali. Internationally, India's military is reinforcing rescue operations in western regions, where the heaviest rain for July in decades has caused flooding and landslides. Now, the details. After 9 weeks of curfew caused by a spike in COVID-19 cases, Federation officials plan to relax restrictions this coming Monday. According to the new statutory rules and orders, SRO number 31 of 2021, changes to the curfew from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. at present to 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. come into effect on Monday, July 26th. This latest move is expected to be in place for 2 weeks. WIN takes a deeper look at the national COVID-19 rate of infection and vaccination rates this past week. For the period July 18th through 23rd, health authorities have reported 13 confirmed cases of COVID-19. Last week, from July 11th through 17th, 20 cases were reported. In the COVID-19 situation report last Wednesday, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hazel Laws confirmed the downward trend in positive case rates.
We saw the peak round about the 23rd of June, and we noted a downward trend. And at present, our daily count is within the single digits, and we want to keep it like that,
explained Dr. Laws. If the current trend of cases continues for the next 2 weeks, conditions and divisions may enjoy a curfew-free existence, the first time since the start of this outbreak 9 weeks ago. The other factor in the return to freedom of movement is vaccinations. According to the latest vaccination report, 71.5% of the target population have received one dose and just under 60% have received a second dose of the vaccine. The target is 33,037 people or adults between St. Kitts and Nevis. Over the last week, 567 vaccine doses were administered. Citizens and residents who lined up for the first dose were 312, with 215 lined up to get the second 2 weeks out from being fully vaccinated. At least 3,660 doses are left from the 5,000 vaccines received earlier this month, expected to expire on August 31st. Officials have still not indicated when the next shipment of vaccines is slated to arrive through the COVAX facility or otherwise. The U.S. donated 7 million doses of vaccine to small and developing countries to be shipped through the COVAX facility, which has started delivery to parts of Central America and Haiti, according to the Pan American Health Organization's vaccine delivery page. The latest country to receive a shipment of vaccines is El Salvador, receiving some 1.5 million doses on Thursday, July 22nd. CARICOM countries are expected to receive a portion of the U.S. donations. In St. Lucia, elections are set to begin on Monday, July 26th, and Philip J. Pierre, leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party, is promising a Labour government of transparency and inclusion if his party wins the election. HTS St. Lucia has the details.
Opposition leader and leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party, Philip J. Pierre, is promising an administration free of resentment if the party gets into office. Voters will head to the polls on Monday, July 26, 2021, to choose a new government. Pierre, who was a guest on Radio 100's Out Goes In, was questioned about what changes would be implemented a day after the elections. He vows to stamp out victimization and encourage more inclusion and togetherness.
How would St. Lucia be different come Tuesday, the 27th?
Very different in that, in my first address to the people of St. Lucia, I will ask them to forget the rancor. I really believe, Stanley, in inclusion. I really believe that you cannot ostracize 35 or 40% of the people because they voted for somebody else. So I want to assure the people of St. Lucia that our government will not be a government of vindictiveness. Our government will not be a government of rancor. Our government will seek to bring people together.
Pierre is campaigning on an economic platform on putting St. Lucians first, from tax relief to social programs. He called on citizens to refrain from engaging in hostilities. In addition to a government of inclusion, he pledged to give MPs a chance to make a change in their constituencies.
We are inheriting the worst performing economy in the OECS. We are inheriting $5 billion of debt. We are inheriting crime. And by the way, I understand there were some issues in Jacmel last night. I want to inform and warn our supporters, do not get attracted by violence. And tell the support. On Sunday, we were going through a motorcade. I actually saw in my own vision, known supporters of the United Workers' Party in an area in Rockhall, chanting and telling them, you're hungry. We have to stop that. Everybody has the opinion. So on Tuesday, St. Lucia will be different in that the leadership of the government will say to the people, let's get together and show it by example. Lead by example. We're not going to just say it and not do it. We're going to lead by example. And the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to ensure parliamentarians get their rightful place and parliamentarians can do things for their constituency.
The opposition leader wants fairness to be the hallmark of a new administration.
A country where we will try to have equality under the law. A country where there's going to be accountability, and a country where all St. Lucians will be given the opportunity to produce and to work in their country for the benefit of all.
The SLP opted to hold off on nominating endorsed candidates for Castries North and Castries Central. Officials explained that this move was to allow other independent candidates a chance to represent their constituencies and work towards a common goal. It should be noted that HTS Radio 100 did extend an invitation to Prime Minister Alan Chasney, who initially accepted on certain conditions but later declined to appear on the Out Goes In program. Gina Filippi, HTS News Force.
In Guyana, the government is considering vaccination, a proposal for social events and mass gatherings to encourage increased vaccination rates, according to President Irfan Ali. Guyana News Source reported Friday night, July 23rd.
The government of Guyana is assessing new ways to increase vaccinations against COVID-19, while cautiously reopening the country. That's according to the President Irfan Ali. Among the proposals being examined is for social gatherings and special venues to only allow persons who are fully vaccinated against COVID.
So, if you want to go to farm tours, you want to go to the movies, you want to go to these places, then you have to be vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, then you will have to wait a bit.
The president stressed that the pandemic is not a joke and that at times necessary actions and decisions must be made to ensure that citizens are protected. The president also added that the measures that are being put in place are as balanced as possible to ensure protection and to bring some form of normality.
Pandemic, this is not a joke. And you have to get tough sometimes. You have to get tough sometimes. I've seen, I don't know if you've seen it, I've seen some of the guidelines from the private sector. Now, we all have democratic rights and responsibilities. But if you took the vaccine, if my friend here took the vaccine, and I understand different people have different positions. My friend took this vaccine to protect himself and his family. And Azima decides she is not taking the vaccine. What gives her the right to put my friend at risk? So whatever measure we bring in place has to be a measure that brings balance to the equation.
The president added that the measures that are being put in place are as balanced as possible to ensure protection and to bring some form of normality. Already some CARICOM member states are putting vaccine requirements in place for visitors. Guyana is also likely to move in that direction, but not at this time.
And this is one of the consequences of vaccine inequality. Because if you're to say that only vaccinated people can now travel, then those developing countries that never had the opportunity to get access even to the vaccine are automatically left out of the equation. So that is why the PCR has to remain in place for some time until there is some level of equity.
Guyana has not put a vaccination requirement in place for visitors, but all incoming passengers are required to provide a negative COVID-19 PCR test result. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health, in an effort to get more persons vaccinated against the virus, has started a house-to-house vaccination drive. This weekend, medical officials are expected to visit a number of communities in an effort to get persons vaccinated against the virus.
We now bring you these international reports.
Even before the funeral of 53-year-old Jovenel Moïse got underway, tensions in Cap-Haïtien ran high. Protesters seeking unanswered questions and angry with the nation's ruling class took to the streets. Many here hoped Moïse's funeral would help mend a fractured nation, but instead of unity, there's deep suspicion over who killed Moïse and why.
We, the Haitian people, are demanding justice for the president, and we are saying that we do not agree to bury the president because they did not arrest the real culprit.
We are blocking the entire Northern Department. Since the death of the president, I have not made any money.
Despite security concerns, dignitaries from across the Americas gathered to pay their respects to the former president. As services got underway, gunshots rang out, forcing dignitaries, including those from the US and the UN, to be rushed to the safety of their vehicles. The assassination of Jovenel Moïse has left this fragile nation reeling, but on Friday, those closest to him paid tribute. A visibly shaken Martine Moïse, still recovering from her injuries after the assassination, called for justice.
Why is wanting to democratize a sin? How has fighting for equal opportunities to enter the civil service become condemnable? To his Haitian brothers, if you cross your arms and just look at the executioners, blood will not cease to flow. Today it is Jovenel Moïse. Tomorrow who will it be? It will be him, it will be me, it will be us.
In the wake of Moïse's assassination on July the 7th, a core group of foreign nations backed Ariel Henry to take the reins as Haiti's new prime minister. The international community is pushing for elections which haven't successfully taken place in more than 4 years. But with a barely functioning Senate and a dissolved parliament, that won't be an easy task.
The large Haitian community here in Miami are paying close attention to the unfolding political crisis in Haiti. Many are shocked that Moïse was assassinated, but more than anything else, they're deeply concerned about the immediate security of the nation they left behind.
At the Notre Dame de Haiti Church in Little Haiti, mourners gathered to pay their respects to the fallen president. Like all Haitians, those gathered have more questions than answers, but with the nation's future hanging in the balance, thoughts turn to those they left behind.
Having all these rumors and so many questions, none of which were answered, led a lot of people to, number one, fear for the security of the country as a whole, but of course to fear for the security of their own families who are still in Haiti.
Haiti stands at a precarious moment as it lays its slain president to rest. The investigation into who was behind his assassination appears no closer to giving Haitians the answers they seek. A date for elections has not been set. Security and stability for now are more pressing issues in this troubled nation. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera, Miami, Florida.
Wading through water is the only way to and from home for the residents. But for many, home has lost all meaning.
I had 3 vehicles. All of them got submerged in flood water. They are all damaged. The furniture inside my house and outside also got damaged. I have suffered a loss of around $10,000.
A financial loss like that will have a severe impact on the daily lives of people in the city of Ratnagiri. With so many homes destroyed, women are being forced to eat whatever they can find and sleep on whichever dry surface is left.
The floodwaters rose to between 6 and 7 meters. That's the highest it's ever risen. All the properties of the residents are destroyed. They have nothing left to eat or drink.
The unprecedented levels come after 24 hours of uninterrupted rain, which has caused the Vishishti River just north to overflow. The state chief minister is promising to do whatever it takes to help people through the disaster.
We will do whatever it takes to save lives and property. The disaster has hit the entire state from Nagpur in the east to Mahabaleshwar in the west. The rains have been unprecedented and we are facing an unexpected emergency.
A combined rescue operation is underway with the Army, Coast Guard and National Disaster Response Force taking part. And the Indian Navy has deployed helicopters to evacuate those stranded. It also has rescue boats and expert divers. Efforts to reach the thousands of people stranded are still being hampered by high water levels and landslides, blocking off major roads and cutting access to hundreds of villages. Even for those whose properties have been spared, for now, there's another scare.
If the water is released from the dam today and the rainfall continues, water may enter our homes.
Red alerts have been issued with heavy rainfall expected to continue for a few more days. But states further south are also facing dangers, with rivers overflowing. Seasonal monsoons provide more than 70% of the nation's annual rainfall, a lifeline for India's farmers who make up much of the country's economy. They also contribute to mass displacement, with the impact only growing worse by the effects of climate change. For residents of Ratnagiri, those effects are already being felt firsthand. Gillian Wolfe, Al Jazeera.
Ever since the modern Olympics began in 1896, an opening ceremony to showcase the identity of a host nation has been part of the Games. But rarely has a city had to pull off a balancing act like this. The show's creative director said the aim was to produce a spectacle that was also sober and in sync with the sentiment of a country going through a pandemic. The ceremony was a made-for-TV event. All fans were banned from attending, just as they will be for the Games to come. A scaled-down athletes' parade was socially distanced and relatively subdued, but athletes from Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Pakistan didn't wear facial masks, breaking supposedly strict rules laid down by organisers. Just one more headache for Olympic President Thomas Bach. He's admitted to having sleepless nights and daily doubts in the build-up to the Games, but he believes it was the right decision to push on and give athletes the chance to fulfil their Olympic ambitions.
This gives all of us hope for our further journey together.
Much of the local population is still to be convinced that this is the event their city needs in the midst of a pandemic. Japanese tennis star Naomi Osaka was handed the job of lighting the Olympic cauldron. Organisers will now be hoping the sporting exploits of athletes like her can help turn public opinion around in the days ahead.
When Tokyo last hosted the Olympics in 1964, the Games showcased the country's re-emergence after World War II. Foreign visitors and athletes were welcomed in what became known as the Inclusion Games. This time around, sadly, the world is having to be kept at arm's length. Andy Richardson, Al Jazeera, Tokyo.
You were listening to the WinFM Headline News on 98.9. Our top stories were: update on COVID-19 infection rate and vaccination numbers. In St. Lucia, elections are set to begin on Monday, July 26th, and Philip J. Pierre, leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party, is promising a Labour government of transparency and inclusion if his party wins the election. In Guyana, the government is considering vaccination a proposal for social events and mass gatherings to encourage increased vaccination rates, according to President Irfan Ali. Internationally, India's military is reinforcing rescue operations in western regions, where the heaviest rain for July in decades has caused flooding and landslides. Thank you for listening.
That was the WinFM Headline News. The Headline News was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
We are faced with tough decisions every day, but choosing the right home or motor insurance shouldn't be one. You need fast claim settlement from a company that's been rooted for over 31 years. And don't forget the A-Excellent rating by AM Best. Make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Reliable insurance that you can count on. Get a quote today for your home, motor, contents, and liability insurance needs, and make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance. Tomorrow secured. Local agents, Dalil Walwyn & Co. Limited. Telephone 465-2631 or 469-5303 for the Nevis office.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International. By land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
People make the world go
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Insurance Company Limited. We care about your investment. Guarantee you peace of mind. The best team in the business. Guarantee you peace of mind. No other company will. Guarantee you peace of mind. Together we'll succeed and guarantee you peace of mind. CDC Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less. People make the world go.
Welcome back to Inside the News. This is WinFM 98.9. I'm your host for today's edition, Devon Cornelius. It is 12:33, and you're listening to Inside the News for Saturday, July 24th, 2021. I'm your host, Devon Cornelius. Good afternoon to all of you who have joined us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of this program today. And for the most part, we have been having a very interesting conversation here as it relates to the IMF statement, the IMF report that was published in early July. That was July 6th of this year. And we have had the opportunity to read some of what the IMF has reported and what their recommendations are. And that is what we're going to continue, yes, for this afternoon. And I would want to get as much participation from members of the public. I'm going to continue with what the IMF has reported, and I'm going to take some calls later on in the program. So the IMF continues to say that financial sector policies should increasingly focus on building readiness for the exit from temporary support measures. Okay, we got to that already. Okay, so there is room to strengthen productivity, growth, economic competitiveness, and human capital. The IMF says GDP per capita growth in the last 2 decades have been relatively weak, and convergence with the US has stopped. Growth has been held back by weak productivity growth, as investment has been high, which may partly reflect the limits of a small island economy. However, several reforms might help boost productivity growth and export competitiveness, including using the CBI program to attract investment beyond the tourism sector, upgrading skills through focused training programs, better aligning the education system with the needs of the labor market, and making it easier for small firms to access credit, including through reforms that facilitate use of non-fixed asset as loan collateral. This is what the IMF has said. This report or statement was published on, but made available on July 6th of 2021. And if you are interested in reading it for yourself and any other past statements or reports, you can visit imf.org, where you will find all of the information. And it lists here countries, and then you just go to S for St. Kitts and Nevis, and there you'll find all the information that you would need as it relates to St. Kitts and Nevis. So remember, it's imf.org. That is where you're going to find the information for yourself. You take some time, you read it, and you comprehend. This has been a rather interesting report, I would say. Before we wrapped up, we were talking about, in terms of some of the measures that the IMF was suggesting in terms of reducing the government wage bill and other measures. Yes, one would understand that the wage bill is not just huge because of a large human resource in terms of how many people are actually on the government payroll. But there's so many other things that I believe the government spends money on that is totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. And I believe for many, many years that governments here in St. Kitts and Nevis, they have just been, in my opinion, performing at average for the most part. Not all, but for the most part, they've just been performing at average in terms of doing the basic stuff that a government is expected to do, such as, fixing roads and building homes and all of that. Those things are, in my opinion, those things don't wow me. If you construct 2 homes and you fix a road in a village, those things don't wow me, because that is short-term employment. In my perspective, short-term employment, you finish fixing the road, and what happens? Of course, yes, fixing the road would have long-term benefits, but some serious injection into the economy would be needed in order for us to really prosper and for us to really do well here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And of course, just like every other economy in the world, COVID has played a role in making sure that people suffer. And so governments that were performing well for the most part have fallen because of the pandemic. And especially for us here in the Caribbean region, where we depend so heavily on tourism. Most of us are tourism-dependent countries that are prone to natural disasters, and so there is, there is never stability in terms of the economy, because as soon as you catch yourself, there's another disaster that you would have to deal with. There is something else that you would have to deal with as a small island developing state. And so this has long been a challenge. We're going to see what steps the government will take to ensure that we don't end up in a situation where the pension fund is empty and people who have worked for 20, 30, 40, 50 years can continue receiving their payment that they have worked for. And so we hope that we don't get to that situation. We hope we don't get to a situation where something like that happens. We've seen this happen in other places, but we hope it does not become a reality. We have a caller on the line. Let's take this caller. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. We seem to have lost that caller. I'm not hearing the caller. Hello, caller. Good morning.
Hello?
You're on the air. Yes, I'm hearing you
Hello,
now.
Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you now. Go ahead.
Okay. I looked at the IMF report as well, right? The first, I found the summary extremely important. Basically, it was a mixed report essentially, and basically in the summary there was the realization that we are not in normal times, and
Yes.
our economy is not functioning as normal. And so it basically said we should be using the CBI and preparing to exit from the temporary support measures, all the stimulus, etc., and the moratorium on like mortgages and those sorts of things. Basically, we should be preparing to exit from them because obviously they're not sustainable, and that we should be pursuing structural reforms to support productivity, economic competitiveness, and human capital. Okay, I think that was the summary, and I think you basically read that.
Yes.
What I would like to point out, first of all, is that the debt spiral started when the current Prime Minister was Minister of Agriculture, and he attempted to save a dying sugar industry. Okay, that is when the debt spiral really started. Okay, because he poured capital into a dying sugar industry. Right, and that point must be noted because another point that is often overlooked is that this debt to GDP ratio went to almost 200%, okay? And it was the previous government that brought it down to about 70%. So really and truly, this government can only claim credit for reducing it by 10%. But you'd never, ever hear that. You'll never, ever hear also that we were ahead on our repayments to the IMF. Okay, you'll hear that the government paid off the IMF. But you'll never hear that we were ahead of on the repayments to the IMF when the government took office. Right? And when we look at the IMF report, you see them acknowledging that we've had good COVID numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Yeah.
Yes.
They also noted that there was a decline of 12.5% in the GDP, and that we had the first fiscal deficit of 4.7% of GDP, and that was since 2010. In other words, the surplus after surplus that you were hearing about started since 2011. You will never hear that also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
I think somebody was saying it was
right there in the IMF.
Somebody was saying it was 6 years.
Exactly. You think that the surplus started after 2015? No, not at all. As we normally say. Okay.
Because 6 years is not nearly a decade.
Exactly. All right. Further to that, okay. You notice that while there is focus on the IMF report now, there was no such focus on the 2018 report. That was
Where is the 2018 report? I haven't seen that one.
Exactly. No, you haven't. Not that there wasn't one. Not that there wasn't one, but the government refused to have it published.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand to this day how they got away with that. Because you would think that the private sector would want to know the true picture of the economy, not getting it from the government side, which is obviously going to be skewed to make the government look good. But from an independent source like the IMF, you would think they'd want to know the true picture of the economy so that they can plan ahead. But somehow they did not object when this report was hidden from the public, from being published. You know, and I think that was really disgraceful. And there should be something that says that those kinds of things should not be allowed to happen. All right? Now, I noticed too that the IMF projects that there will be a further decline of 1% in 2021.
Yes.
Okay? Yeah. If I recall, the budget presentation last year was actually projecting renewed growth. So that is not good news at all. Okay? And it's also saying that there will be 10% growth by 2022. That might be somewhat optimistic, but let's hope that it comes true. All right? What was also interesting was that the IMF was recommending that government should resume its policy of saving part of the CBI revenues to have fiscal buffers. Okay?
Right.
I recall, was it just yesterday that Mrs. Henry was saying that, well, the government had $900 million there. It made them look bad to see that they had $900 million there and left so many things undone. Well, as I pointed out yesterday, development is a continuing thing. Okay, you can't do everything one time. But also that $900 million did not come in overnight. It was building up the buffers that the IMF spoke about. It came in over the years from our CBI revenues, right? And so it's a case of good, prudent management. When you do things like that, you make sure there's money there for a rainy day like now. We should thank our lucky stars that we had that money available, right? And I mean, just think about it. If you have $100,000 in the bank and you see a $100,000 car that you want to buy, do you go and use up all the money in the bank and get that car? Don't you pay down something on it and have some reserve in the bank just in case some contingency come along, there's some illness or whatever that you have to deal with? You don't use up all the money. Who does that? In the same way, that's how government should operate. They have to save for a rainy day, not just use up all the money that they have. And the land for that swap, this thing that government gave away the land, isn't the land still there? As far as I know, not 1 square foot of land was sold prior to the incoming government. They may have taken back some, I think, maybe with the when they had this La Valley, the project that was supposed to have taken place at the La Valley. What they call it? The Six Senses.
Six Senses.
The government slip through their fingers. Okay, but the fact is, they were the ones who were prepared to buy back the land from, essentially it was National Bank. Okay, if we own 51% of the shares in National Bank, we are ostensibly buying back the land from ourselves. The fact is, the land for debt swap was the single most important factor in reducing our debt to GDP ratio. That is what did it. Okay, and it was the least painful way of doing it, because if you didn't do that, you would have had to increase taxes more, or dig into Social Security funds, or some other really terrible thing like that, policy like that. So it was the least painful way of doing it. All right, and I realized that the government got a kind of a smackdown from this report because of their lack of their inability to attract foreign direct investment. Okay, you notice that there's been no new foreign direct investment for the last 6 years. What major project has come in, right? The what they call it, the solar farm that is supposed to come here cannot be regarded as that, because what's going to happen there is that they're going to pay upfront for the plant, but then we are going to have to pay for the electricity that we get from them. Okay, that's not foreign direct. That's not foreign direct investment that's going to benefit us. That's taking money out of the country, right? Not bringing in money. All right, because we are going to have to pay for it anyway, right? And so I think they got a smackdown when in the concluding paragraph it says there is room to strengthen productivity growth,
yes,
and
economic
competitiveness
competitiveness.
and business capital. Basically, they're saying that we don't know what we're doing insofar as economic policy, okay? Because it's saying that we're not doing anything. The what you call them, the social programs are good. It's nice to be giving out money here, there, and everywhere. But if you don't have productive sectors of the economy that's going to deal with bringing in new money, exporting stuff, then we're not doing we're not going anywhere.
But if I may add, caller, it says here in the report that containing the pandemic and supporting the economy remain the key near term. There was a section, trying to find that section, in terms of we're going to prepare to exit these temporary measures that the government has taken.
Yeah.
To provide or to stimulate the economy.
Executive summary. Yeah. And they also said that we should be making better use of the CBI funds beyond tourism. In other words, they're saying that we need to diversify the economy, stop concentrating on just the tourism sector, and diversify the economy. And I have not heard of any of government plans to do that. Okay, it was critical of our education systems, which it said should be more aligned with the labor market. Okay, and which are obvious things that we are not doing yet either. You're not hearing any huge push towards doing that. And it also said they should be improving small business access to credit. Well, obviously, they looked at what the government was doing in that respect and found that it came up wanting. So, yes, there were patches of good in the sense that when you look at it, in the COVID situations, we've managed to keep our head above the water, but that was mainly due to our CBI, that the previous government, the changes to the CBI that the previous government made, that gave us the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and I think Mrs. Henry was quibbling over the figures as well. She said it was 637 according to the auditor's report, That might be so, but then there were millions inside the SIDF then as well. I think that is where the 900 or close to $1 billion came. Okay, there were several hundred million in the SIDF as well as the Treasury. Okay, but basically what it speaks to is the fact that we whatever we're doing right now in terms of the access to capital by small business, which after all has been well, most economists will tell you they're the driving force of most modern economies. Okay, whatever we're doing to provide access is inadequate, and we should have another look at it with a view towards coming up with better solutions. So overall, a mixed report, but it just shows some inefficiencies and inadequacies of government policies right now, because that's another area. The economic policy has not changed since 2015. It's the same old. Nothing new, nothing innovative. Okay? And that is, I think I might have spoken to you before about the fact that this government always has to be clean up after itself in terms of wastage. They have all this money. They inherited all this money to do all these projects. Instead of prioritizing them, okay, and making sure that they're executed efficiently, they're engaged in wastage. They're wasting money, wasting taxpayers' money. There should be some department that is provides oversight for a lot of these projects, because to me, they're not prioritized properly, they're not executed properly, and as a result of that, we end up spending money that we could well use for other areas, like health, for instance, during the pandemic. Okay, so that's my purview of the IMF report.
Right.
All right then.
Carla, thank you so much for your contribution to this program. We're going to take a break to say thank you to the sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to be taking some more calls. Call us and weigh in on this very interesting discussion that we're having. Let's take this break. We'll be right back.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
TDC Automotive is paying for you. Deposit? We're paying. 3-month installments? We're paying. Pay nothing for 3 months because we are paying. Take a moment, catch your breath, and roll out with ease. Save over $20,000 off your new Toyota Hiace because TDC Automotive is paying. Get your Toyota Hiace today. TDC Automotive, #1 for a reason. Terms and conditions apply.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News on WinFM 98.9. We have a caller on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good afternoon. You are live. Okay, we seem to have lost that caller. We are still taking calls here on 1FM 98.9. Do we have any callers on the line?
Good afternoon to
Okay,
you and to your audience.
Yes, caller, good afternoon.
Yes, I'm calling in to just to correct something that I said earlier. And first of all, I said earlier, well, you had asked me what are my recommendations, and I said, well, the Bible make these recommendations, but I should not have used the word recommendations, because the Bible does not give recommendations or suggestions. What it gives are commands, instructions, and demands. That is what the Bible gives. And what I said were the Bible actual instructions and commands to us to do, for us to do. They are not recommendations and they are not suggestions. Now, one of the ways that you see the signs of God's curse on a nation is by national debt, by there being a national debt. And the bigger the debt means the more of God's judgment is on that nation, the more the national debt is. And as the Bible tells you, when a nation is blessed of God, it does not go in debt. It is actually a giver. You are a giver nation and not a nation in national debt. And so our national debt is just one of the many signs, because there are many signs of being that shows that you're under God's curse and judgment. And one of them, and it pertains to us in St. Kitts, is having a national debt. And the more it grows, is a sign the more of God's judgment is on that nation because of their disobedience and our disobedience to the Word of God. And unless we get back to the Word of God, things will only get worse and worse and worse. I know people hate to hear that, but I've been saying it over the years, and the more time passes, is the more we see the teachings of the Bible, what the Bible says coming to pass and is true. And what I say ain't come from me, it come from the Word of God to the glory of Jesus Christ only.
Right. Thank you, caller, so much for your contribution.
Thank you.
You're right. We're still taking calls here on 1FM at 98.9. It's 3 minutes past the hour of 1 here in our studios, and you're listening to Inside the News. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. We're taking some calls. A very interesting conversation that we're having. This is about the IMF report statement that was published recently. And so, okay, we have a call on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good afternoon. You are on the air.
Yes, good afternoon. And how are you doing, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm doing fine. And you?
Well, I'm doing just as blessed as the rain. And speaking of the rain, you know that we are in the hurricane season. And this is something that I take very seriously. We already witnessed 54 days so far in the hurricane season of 2021. And we have 129 more days left. Barbados was spared because, you know, we had something came to the Caribbean. St. Lucia, just a little bit of damage. So far, we have continued to be spared, and we have to continue to give thanks. We are very proud. We are very happy and pleased that the Master continued to pour his blessings down on our country. We are in a big deficit, and we hope that that will continue to improve and to increase. Very important discussion, very important topic. Because when it comes to governance, it is something that any citizens should take seriously. Unfortunately, there are some people who choose to take it seriously when they want. And what is good today, the same thing may not be good tomorrow based on certain circumstances. You know, there are times when something is right according to who do it, and it is wrong according to who do it. But what I can tell you, opinion is not facts. I listened to the previous caller before the last caller, which I understand, yes, that he supports the dream team. He supports the government or the party which was still dreaming about retaining government in 2015. He still. And that is why just a few weeks ago they had a campaign meeting on a particular radio station. But I wouldn't even waste time to get into that, to be honest. You would have touched on so many different things, so many different areas of the economy, which is important. And I can tell you, there are things that are important when it comes to a government. There are things that are equally important when it comes to a government. And there are things that are most important when it comes to a government. A government has fundamental obligations to a country, to a nation, to its citizens. And 5 very important things a government must and obligated to produce for its citizens: housing, employment, security, education, and most important, health. I want to say this to you. I'll take these 3 things. I want you to find out. So when you come back, you can report to the country. Under the previous government, I want you to report how many surplus budgets we had. How many surplus budget we had between 1995 and 2014. Secondly, how many double salaries were paid? And I want you to find out if there are any other country in the world which had to swap land for debt outside of St. Kitts and Nevis. So I just would want you to get these things, and I will have a lot more to say on those. But I have the answers, but I want you to come and bring the information. I want to tell you.
So caller, if you have the answers, why don't you share it?
No, you're in the media.
Right,
and
so I'm giving you the opportunity now.
You as an individual.
Right, so as a person who is in the media, right, so as a person who is in the media, I am facilitating the discussion for you to share what you know. So if you have information on how many surpluses we've had between 95 and 2014, how many double salaries and etc., then I'm going to give you the opportunity to share that information with members of the public.
I am saying to you again that I'm just asking of you if you can get the information for yourself, because there are many times people come.
Right. Go ahead.
So I will just leave it at there. I am saying there's something called time and timing. Time and timing. And thank God that we have a government today. We have people who are leading the government today. You realize that in the St. Kitts Nevis government today, the government is run by 2 experts when it comes to finance. The Prime Minister, and this is a fact, he has a PhD in accounting. The Deputy Prime Minister have a master's in accounting. Under the previous government had the Prime Minister as a doctor, the Deputy Prime Minister as a doctor, and when you think of also that too, because this is one of the things that a country takes seriously.
But question, caller, and this is a legitimate question. Who was the Minister of Finance?
Pardon?
Who was the Minister of Finance?
Your question is vague. Who was the Minister of Finance? Who is the Minister of Finance?
Who was the Minister of Finance?
Under the previous administration?
Yes.
Which was the former Prime Minister, unfortunately.
Okay.
And this is why, imagine...
Wait.
Just imagine, like for instance, in Jamaica, the Minister of Health is a doctor. In Trinidad, the Minister of Health is a doctor. In Guyana, the Minister of Health is a doctor. It so happened that under that former government, you had two doctors in the administration before 2015. One was the Minister of Health. And imagine which health is supposed to be the most important when it comes to a country. Do you know who was the Minister of Health before the government changed in 2015?
I'm not aware. Share with me.
Okay, the Minister of Health was the Honorable Marcella Liebert. She's not a doctor, she's a lawyer.
So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you, caller, let me ask you a question. Who is the Minister of Health now?
The Minister of Health now, which is totally different. Because we don't have any medical doctor in the present administration. Total different ball game. You remove the Minister of Health, who was a doctor. When it comes to leading the ministry,
So
when it comes to health,
I'm not understanding clearly what you're saying. You're saying that the Minister of Health was Marcella Liebert, who is a lawyer. Are you saying that to say that she was not qualified for the post?
I am saying that under that administration, you had two medical doctors. The Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister.
Okay. Right.
None
Understand
of them
that.
held the Ministry of Health. Who you think is most appropriate to lead a law firm?
Right. I understand what you're saying there, right? But you later stated that Marcella Liebert was the Minister of Health, but she's a lawyer. So with that statement, what are you suggesting?
It so happened that the Minister of Health before her, he was a doctor. The former Prime Minister removed the doctor
So we have established
who's supposed to be leading the ministry. The most appropriate person to lead
that
a
has
minister.
been, caller, that has already been established that prior to the Liebert, the Minister of Health was a medical doctor. But you later stated that Marcella Liebert was the Minister of Health, but she's a lawyer. But the Minister of Health now is not a doctor. So what are you saying?
I am saying that we had an administration which did not take hardly anything they took seriously. Hardly anything. And that is why, and I also want you to find out, because they're talking about leaving this load of money in the treasury and in government. How come Social Security, there were debts written off by Social Security? Find out about that. There were debt written off by National Bank. Even the churches in this country. I am saying, I will accept a national debt. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis will accept a national debt. The people of this country will accept a national debt. But we will not accept a national debt at any cost.
Caller, before I can allow you to continue, I want you to clarify a statement you made, right?
Yes.
Because you're saying, I'm going to take you to task because I want to understand exactly what you're saying. You're saying that, which you have not explained properly. You're saying that Marcella Liebert was the Minister of Health, but she's not a doctor. She's a lawyer. On many occasions, we have had people who served as Ministers of Health, and they were not doctors. I am telling you now, which is a fact, that our current Minister of Health is not a doctor. Hamilton, Eugene Hamilton served as Minister of Health and he wasn't a doctor.
Understanding what I'm saying.
No. I'm understanding what you're saying. I am understanding, caller. I am understanding what you're saying. You know, you pointed out that in the Labour administration there were 2 doctors, and at a point in time they did not serve as ministers of health. But you went on to say that Marcella Lightbird served as Minister of Health, but she's not a doctor. So how is it fair? How is it fair? No, Carla, hold on. How is it fair for you to say that Marcella Lightbird served as Minister of Health, not a doctor, but it's not fair for you to say that it is the same situation now?
You said something that I did not say. I did not say that at any time you didn't have any doctor when in the Ministry of Health. I am saying before you had a doctor in the Labour government who was a medical doctor, which was the right thing. They removed him and put him to be in charge of public works and put a lawyer to be in charge of Ministry of Health. Who was the best person to lead the Ministry of Health if the government was serious? It should have been the doctor. You don't take a lawyer to run accounting firm. You don't take somebody in marketing to run a medical department. You take people
so if it
who
was
have expertise
Carla,
in the area. The
Carla,
government was
if
not
it was
serious. That is why they bankrupt the country.
Carla, I understand clearly what you've stated, right? So the only difference is that now in the present administration we don't have any doctors. Right?
We have a doctor, so that is not correct.
Okay. In the present administration?
You don't have a doctor in this in the present administration?
Who is the doctor?
But it so happened that we do not have a medical doctor. Dr. Harris is a doctor.
Come on, Carla. Let's be realistic here. You know we're talking about medical doctors. Come on. We're talking about medical doctors. So as it is now, we don't have a medical doctor, right? Let me be specific. We don't have a medical doctor in the current administration. So are you saying that it is now appropriate for anybody to be Minister of Health because there is not a medical doctor?
If you have an administration, you have to put somebody to be in charge of an area. As I said, and I say again, if they were taking the health of this country seriously, you cannot remove somebody who is most trained in an area and remove them and put somebody else who has less training. That is what I'm saying. It is totally different now. If we had somebody in the cabinet who is a medical doctor, that is the person I would expect to lead the ministry. So it is a different ball game. But the government of St. Kitts and Nevis will not be distracted. Will not be distracted. The bottom line is that we have right now, under the circumstances, the best people to lead St. Kitts and Nevis right now. If we had what we had before 2015, crapper with a smoke with pipe. If we had a crisis, a world crisis in 2011, and imagine in the last 5 years, this is another thing I want you to find out. I want you to find out how many taxes has been introduced to the people of this country between 2015 and now. That is what I want you to find out. But I want you to find out how many taxes were introduced in 2011 alone. 2011 alone. Among the whopping unfortunate 85% increase in electricity among the many other increases in terms of taxes. It was a government that had no clue when it comes to financial and fiscal management. They had no clue. They think that to tax the country to death was the way to manage. They think so. And that is how they operated. God has removed Pharaoh. And God has put the right people at the right time to bring the right results. Not perfect people, but we have the best people and the best team. And before I leave, let me tell you, I had no confidence in the former Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. I have no confidence in the present opposition in St. Kitts and Nevis. But I will put it to you. I will put it to this program, to the station, the rest of the nation, and to the rest of the world, that I have full confidence in the future of St. Kitts and Nevis under a team unity government. And I will leave it there for now, because there's so much more that I have to say, but I will leave it there for now. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, caller, for your contribution. It is 22 minutes past the hour of 1, and we're still taking calls here on 1FM 98.9. We're going to see how much calls we can get in up until the end time. We have a caller on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good afternoon. You are live on Inside the News.
Yes. Good afternoon again, Mr. Cornelius.
Good afternoon.
There's no question that some painful measures were taken when we had that economic downturn during the worldwide recession. No question about that. Okay? But look at the facts. We emerged from that crisis better than all of our neighbors in the region. We had the highest growth rate. And you notice that, I told you already that the IMF said the growth rate, the GDP growth fell by 1% in 2020. It fell before that, you know, in 2070. Maybe that's why they hit the IMF report. Because in 2070, according to the ECCB and the CDB, our growth rate fell by 2%. The second time. So they met a high growth rate, and they kept declining until in 2017, it went below zero. Okay? Understandably, now, we're in COVID, it has gone below zero again. But the fact is, to talk of great economic management, when you meet an economy like what you met, and I don't know what kind of homework he give you, you know, because I've heard several times people asking, reporters asking the Prime Minister, well, how much was left in the kitty when he came into power, and he refused to answer. He knows how much it was there. Why do you think he refused to answer? For the same reason he hit the IMF report, right? He wants to look as if he is responsible for the largest that was left. And that is just not so. But it's important and the same thing applies to any of the other things that he gave you to look up. Sure, government helped with houses, the house roofing program. But that's the least the government could do. When we had the multiple hurricanes when Labour took office, right? People got whole houses, not just roofs. That is why our housing stock is what it is today. Before 1996, you would have been surprised at how the country looked, right? If you did a Google search then and one now, you'll be really surprised. You'll be shocked at the state of the housing back then. Okay? So you can't look at it. And I think you referred to this when you were saying that you're not impressed by the mundane stuff. Okay? We should go, we pass that stage now, where we look at roads and piers and bus terminals and those kinds of things. Okay? Those are things that any self-respecting government should be providing for its citizens. Okay? We should look more at the big stuff because that is what's going to determine our lives in the future. Government should be providing opportunities for its citizens. Nothing, no handout, no tap, no step, none of them can replace the dignity of a good paying job, okay? And where you're providing for yourself and your family. That is what life is about, okay? And that is what government should be about, okay? Not providing handouts, right? Expanding opportunities for people, bringing in more investment, and enhancing the private sector, empowering people to get into their own business, okay? So that they can increase productivity and growth. That is what it is about, okay? And so you know, it's unfortunate that they still looks at these things in terms of how many double salaries were provided. That's neither here nor there to a man's economic progress going forward. You need sustainable, permanent employment. Nothing can replace that. No handout can replace that. And if they're not doing that, if the government is not about that, then they don't know what governance is about. And one other thing, with regards this thing about, well, you're a doctor and therefore you should be in charge of health. That is not how our political arrangements are made. Okay? You run for an election, you're in charge of a ministry. It's like you're forgetting that there are hundreds of civil servants, technocrats, and professionals that you can that are there to advise you. It has nothing to do with your personal what you personally bring to the table in terms of the particular ministry, right? So you can run a ministry even though you know absolutely nothing about it before you came into office. It happens all the time. Okay, that's just the way it is. I mean, elected political office is different from being a functionary in a ministry. Okay, and so yes, the politicians always want to take the credit, but that is not how it goes. Okay.
Let me ask you a question before you go. Do you know who served as our Minister of Finance from between 2008 and 2010? Okay, we seem to have lost our caller. Came off. Caller, we have a caller on the line. Hello, caller.
Sure straight up, but I know that the current Prime Minister. Hello. Yeah.
Yes, I'm listening.
Hello.
Yes, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Hello.
Caller, I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah. Well, between 2008 and 2010, between 2008 and 2010, yes, between 2008 and 2010, I'm not absolutely sure who was the minister, but I know that the current Prime Minister was in fact a finance minister at some point during the previous administration. Okay? And you know, we often forget that he was actually part of the administration for 18 years when we come on making these comments now. Okay? As I pointed out before, he was also agriculture minister. Okay? People would say that the agriculture ministry is in a sorry state. But that's just the way it is. He was partly responsible for that. Okay? So the hard point though is that we should look at the facts, yes, and having looked at the facts, come to the right conclusions.
Right. Thank you, caller, for your contribution. We had a bit difficulty there hearing you. I sincerely apologize for that. mishap. This has been a very interesting conversation here on Inside the News 98.9 Win FM. And we're going to end our program now. Very interesting conversation. Everybody would have their own piece to add. I totally respect the opinions and views of the callers. I totally respect it. And I always look forward to your input, the input of the callers and what they have to add to the program. And I appreciate that. I know we're out of time, and so perhaps we would have to continue this discussion at a later date. And let me just say thank you to all of you for joining us here on Inside the News. This has been a very interesting discussion. We hope to be back soon to continue this very important discussion and to get some meaningful contribution from members of the public. Thank you guys so much. Continue to enjoy your Saturday. Remember, we are not out of the woods yet as it relates. Please continue to wear your face mask, continue to practice social distancing, and do whatever you have to do to safeguard yourself and members of your family from the COVID-19 as well as its variants. So stay safe and God bless you. Have a good one. You are listening to Inside the News on 1FM 98.9. I've been your host for today, Devon Cornelius. Take care.
Know that you've captured those special moments. Turn them into lasting memories at the TDC Business Center. Purchase your photo print bundle and get a chance to win a Canon MG3010 printer. Click and print. Visit TDC Business Center today.